For more than a year and a half, I've been building an epic steampunk city. In that time, I've undertaken crazy terraforming projects, made stunning factories, cozy houses, even a huge cathedral with thousands of little details to add to the immersion of the world. I even had a couple of hermits over to check it out.
Oh, it's definitely, I mean, he nailed the pose. The pose is just, this is you every time you get surprised by something.
And now I'm moving on to the next phase with even more wild builds as we head back into AD's adventure. But first of all, since the visit last episode from the Hermits, I have made some major updates to my world by upgrading to 1.20.4. This has allowed me to add in the experimental updates, which mean I can get all of these fantastic new blocks that have come through in the copper and also the blocks that have come through with the tuff. So I'm really excited about getting to use all of these, though it has given me one problem, and that is that I don't have anywhere near as much tuff as I'm gonna need. So I'm back over at where the mining machine is, or should I say was, because if I come over here and I break a couple of blocks, you will see that we've got all the way from the starter village to the steampunk area, so I can't go any further this way. So what I've had to do is to mark this off so that I can't actually go any further and take apart the machine and rebuild it going back the other way. Only this time, rather than building the 2-module version, I have built the 4-module version so I can actually do a lot more mining. So I just hit the note block, and just to remind you, this was a build by Borken, and this then blows up the end. You just run across. I can pick up twice as much deep slate, twice as much tuff when I actually get 2 big chunks of tuff, and I've already been doing a fair bit of the mining now. And that has led to a far healthier supply of this tuff. And this is great because some of these new blocks are absolutely fantastic. We've got all of the chiseled tuff here. We've got the chiseled tuff bricks as well. Look, they are, between the two of them, really nice decorative blocks, alongside just the tough regular blocks as well that we now have the stairs, slabs and the walls for. So really pleased to get all of these blocks going, and as you can see by the number of levels that I have and the contents of my copper barrel here, I've been doing an awful lot of AFKing at the farm in the end, and I'm going to need to do a lot more because if we come into the crafting bench we can see that the price of copper doors is just ludicrous. Each one of these copper doors, given that you get 3 for 6 copper blocks, will cost you 18 ingots, which is crazy. But it gets even worse when you look at the copper trapdoors. Each one of these is 27 ingots, so you get 2 trapdoors for 6 full blocks, and that is just absolute madness. I really think that Mojang will have to do something about that, but in the meantime I will need to use them because they are so gorgeous, which just means I'll need to do a lot more AFKing. But now on to the first project of the episode, and for this I am going to be going transportation mad again. So as you can see behind me, I've already built a whole bunch of airships, but I need some more transport aside from these roads and all of the vehicles that I've got going on here around the base. And the way that I'm going to do that is by coming over here and use this space next to the boathouse and to do a little bit of terraforming. And you know me, when I say a little bit of terraforming, I don't mean a little bit of terraforming. So this is going to be built up as a new cliff, and on top of that I am going to build a monorail station with the plan that the train is going to go all the way from here across this building, over this big open space next to the amethystine bell jar, to another station that's going to be here before going off round into the new terraformed area, ready to be linked up wherever I want in the future. And to do this, I'm going to have to put together a whole bunch of resources, like running my copper aging facility, but not before undoing all of the work that Corrales has managed to do around the base, because the man cannot go past a button without pressing it. Speaking of buttons, very satisfying. Reloaded and ready for the next batch. After a not so quick trip to my storage system, I've collected most of the resources that I'm going to need to get the first stage of this done, which is going to be building up the cliff that I'm going to put the station on top of, and also creating a way for me to physically get up there on top. So now for the first time lapse of the episode. And step 1 of the monorail project is now complete, and we have a cliff in place. It's not as significant as the ones over there, but it definitely does the trick and will elevate the station above the builds that we've got. So in terms of getting up here, you could parkour up this. I've designed this so it is parkourable, if that's even a word. But I have added some stairs. One of the things that I noticed when I was showing Corellis and Beef around was there was no way to transition between these 2 levels. But we've now got stairs that connect up right the way through to the build, and including this staircase that goes in through the cliff and comes round and up here. And I have absolutely no idea. I will need to do something in here because we've got this big flat wall and quite a long passageway. But I don't know what I'm going to do here, so I'll need to have a think about that. But if we come up, we do get some lovely views here right the way across on this paved section. You can just about see the edge of the cathedral there. And this is the section that I'm going to be building the actual station and the platform with, again, some decoration here. And this is the starting point, basically, for where the rail is going to go. And it's going to wind across through the area above things and then just over into the distance past that windmill that we just sits at the edge of the fog. So yeah, this is good. This is a good platform to work from. One of the things that I'm going to need and I want for the decoration is actually something that I've not used so far. I want to get some kelp blocks and actually decorate using them, just as a different tone, but I haven't had any so far. And that means time for a new farm. Back at the storage system, I've had a fantastic idea. Something that kills 2 birds with 1 stone, if you will. The first stage is to pick up a couple of resources, take them back over to the new mountain, and tell you about my plan. And that is going to be to replace this big wall here, and probably one of these walls as well, with some of the kelp farms that I actually need. Now, I've got these big spaces, I didn't have anything to do with them, and it just hit me, why don't I put the kelp in here and you'll be able to see it growing up through this wall, and then I can put some collection either on one of these 2 sides and decorate around them as they are machined, a little bit like we've got the bamboo farm in the other tunnel. And that gives me another opportunity as well, which is to show you some of the creative process that goes into decorating some of my builds. The first thing I'm going to need to do is clear out the space for the farms. I'm loosely using a tutorial that I'll put in the description by UForced with a simple and lossless automatic kelp farm, but I will be making some changes to it so that it fits in with my aesthetic. With a big space dug out here for one of the farms and another one just there, which is pretty much the same, it's now time to start thinking about what I'm going to be putting in them. And first of all, I'm going to be using some of the new tough blocks. So we've got these nice wavy ones because they've got a fantastic texture on the bottom and on the top. And also these other decorative ones equally because they've got a brilliant bottom and top texture. And I'm going to obviously be supplementing those where necessary with the regular tough. So the first thing will be to set out the surround for them and then actually build the redstone in just behind. And the mechanics for these kelp farms are pretty simple. You plant the kelp along the bottom in the water, grows up past the piston, and as soon as it triggers the observer, that then activates this redstone line that then pumps the pistons and breaks it, and it floats up, gets pushed across and down into the chests. So I've done all the redstone, like I say, for this first one. It's really simple. I've now got to actually box it in and get it filled up with water. That first of the kelp farms is now complete, so as I am building in the other area, I can be collecting some kelp as that potentially grows up, which would be great. Next thing is to get this one in here. I may make some tweaks as I go to this, but basically it's just going to be a case of recreating exactly the same in this space here. Those are both now finished, and it's on to the rest of the decoration. There is one thing that I've noticed, that when the pistons pump, it destroys the water source in there. So sometimes you will get some kelp that sits at the top of the block beneath until the kelp in there grows up and turns it back to a water source. But it's all fine. It is working away and it is giving me some kelp. So that's all that I need really. I don't need a massive amount of kelp. You can see an example here, but as soon as this grows up, that will then float up to the top and get picked up. But I now need to find a place, and I'm thinking probably here, because the kelp in itself isn't really as much use as the dried kelp. So I need to set myself up a little smelting array somewhere in this wall, and that is now done. It's a pretty simple setup for the smokers in the sense that you've just got the input in the top and the input in the side for the fuel as well, and then it comes out into this chest. But what I have done is used a couple of the new copper bulbs in the back, and I absolutely love those. I can get through this wall, and if anything happens and they glitch off, turn them back on, so that's not too much of a problem. Then just a little bit of decoration around, but I do love the fact that these, as you move through, just gives that extra element of depth. And I have put some fuel in these now, so now it's just to stick a stack of the kelp in here and watch these go in, and this will give us the dried kelp that we can turn into the blocks that we're going to need later. Next, I need to decorate this area here. Now, this is going to be a bit of a control panel, I think. I'm going to be using a similar kind of copper-based machine that I've used in the past. So first of all, this is going to be where some of the cables are going to come out later, and then I think we will use one of these copper bulbs here and a couple of blocks of copper here and here. I did have an idea that I came up with the other day, which I think I'll use, which is actually to put a copper grate in here and to waterlog it, and then this probably needs to be switched out for a piece of copper as well. Pick that up, and then it's just a case of connecting some things up. Another trick that I use quite often is if I take a smoker here and I pop this in the ground like so, then it gives a hole, and then using some of the chains and some of the levers and finally connecting up with some of the lightning rods, we can shift click and get these connected up and get this one done. If I do that, it starts the copper bulb as well. So then we have this connecting in like this, and then we want one of these like so and one like this. Let's turn that one the other way round, I think. So just come down into the hole, get rid of this one and put it the other orientation so it's down like that. Excellent. And then one final one here, just like so, and then we fill that back in. I think that that's pretty much there. Just a couple more bits, maybe a button here and a button here, and probably just some kind of a readout, and one of the most dynamic ones I find is a clock, just to put in there like this because it moves throughout the day. I might change the backing out for this polished deep slate just to give it a bit more contrast, but I really like the shape and how that looks like it's controlling these two machines. And with some final tweaks, this area is now done, and if I have a look around, I've added some of these cables going through between the different areas, so this now feeds into the furnace array. We've got these cables coming down into the ground. We have got an ender chest, which is always useful, but it comes in and it powers the outputs and it powers the input from the machine. I did change this out for the polished deep slate, and I also put a light in behind this waterlogged block. I thought that looked really cool. I've got this coming down into the ground. There's some lighting obviously in the floor behind that as well, and another light, and that's just a frog light behind one of the grates in the ceiling, and then coming round again, another connection into this machine, and then just going around into the walls. So it makes it look a lot more cramped, which was what I was looking for, but also a lot more practical. Again, just adding that usage to everything. I've left this kind of blank because this is going to be connected up to the decoration outside when this flows in, and I won't need both of these lights. After a little bit of collection, now that I have a sufficiently colourful shulker monster set up, I'm ready to time-lapse the station. So I may have got a little bit carried away with all of the decoration after I finished that build. As you can see over here, we've got quite a lot going on. So we've got these honey blocks that have been brought up from the bottom here. This is using a crane. This crane has got two counterweights because it's obviously got a much longer reach that it's going to need. Lots of amethyst, a lovely little view through here. Again, keeping an idea of the sight lines. Here, this is something that I've put in. So rather than using all of the slime blocks and the honey blocks, I've got one here that is blue ice, and that is mainly because I absolutely love how the blue ice looks through these holes in the mangrove trapdoors, and also used a fair few of these copper bulbs as well. These are amazing. And so there's some on the other side. So this has got some little pipes that go into the mountain on this side. It's got, if I come through here, pipes that go in on this side as well. If we head up, there's one right above there, and obviously one over here as well that you might have caught a glimpse of when I was showing you the other side. So yeah, absolutely love those in terms of the contrast. And then I've used some of the emerald blocks. I haven't really used any emerald blocks because I just haven't really had enough emeralds. I've been spending them all. But now I've got some emeralds in reserve, then these look great, especially against the red, the contrast it gives there. Coming in, we've got the platform up here. And we've got all of the kelp blocks ready to be picked up, looking a bit like parcels, which was why I wanted these. And we've got these, which are the movable back and forth little platform entrances to allow people to get onto the trains. And on this platform, the rail is going to go across here and then round and off into that distance. So let's head into the station itself. So heading over here, we have got a ticket machine over here and then a little queuing section by the checkout, obviously a bed just because that's essential, and then some more machinery around here. We've got the little barrier as well with these copper bulbs. Absolutely love this. We need some conveniences, much as we have with the funicular railway. Obviously, if there's people waiting at the stations, they need somewhere to relieve themselves. And then in here, I've gone for some waiting areas and then a little dousing of amethystine. So love how this looks. This is not the most complicated, but still quite a functional interior. This is now ready for us to add in the rails that are going to go through to the next station. Though there is one problem I have before that, and that is all of the copper bulbs that I've been using. These are actually quite expensive, not necessarily in the copper itself or in the redstone, but each one of these requires a blaze rod, and I haven't got any blaze rods left. I've used all of them up to craft these, so I need to head into the Nether and do a bit of blaze farming. As OGs from the series will know, luckily we have a Nether fortress about 150 blocks away from the Nether hub, so I set out to work on the blaze rods. There were some insanely epic PvE skills on display. One incredibly close call. Some Hawkeye level bow action. And the most ridiculous piece of luck with a couple of wither skeletons that I've ever seen. So with nearly 3.5 stacks of blaze rods, I think my work here is done. One thing I definitely need to do now, though, is repair my bow. Much better. For the next stage in the Monorail project, I am going to have to add some pillars that are going to support the rail. So I'll probably have to put the first one on top of this roof, and then they're going to be relatively evenly spaced throughout here and curling round off towards that windmill. I am going to have to move some of the decoration, but I have got a really, really cool design that I've been working on. So time to get those in place. And now those are done, I absolutely love how these look stretching off into the distance, but they're not going to be like that for long. If we just go into free cam a little bit, we can take a look at this. And yeah, I've just tried to use some of the darker blocks so that when you do look at them, it's got a bit of a contrast to some of the other builds in place. So now I've got all of the resources that I'm going to be using, and I'm going to be using an awful lot of this lovely, lovely polished tuff that we've got now in the game, and loads of trapdoors to be able to actually build the track going out this way. So for this, I think it's going to be best to do a little bit of a time lapse. Well, that took a lot more time and resources than I expected, but it was definitely worth it. I had to go and get some more tuff and some more trapdoors, but seeing this now snaking off into the distance and off into the fog, it looks amazing. This is the end of the line, so we've got these bumpers up at the end. And I was in a bit of an angled mood, hence why I built this station on an angle and this track on an angle as well, just to break up some of the straight lines that we've got here. So yeah, really love this. Had to work out how to light this, so I used some of the glow lichen across here because that actually doesn't stick out too much on the tuff. It's a really nice texture to go alongside this tuff. But up here you get some brilliant views, so it's a brilliant way that you can run along. But if we drop down here as well, break your ankles first of all, but I've tried to make it so it doesn't dwarf the surroundings. You still get the views through of the cathedral, but it adds, like the airships, another element of verticality through here. And the way that it curves around, I really, really like how I managed to get the curves going on. And up here, if we head up, we've also got a nice dip down to this station. So it's all about the angles, and I've just fallen off the cliff, but it's fine. It's all about the angles, it's all about the curves for this particular build. And when we do the mapping a bit later on, then I think that this is going to add so much to what we've already got going on here. And this is where the next piece of work is going to be done. This is where we're going to have another little teeny tiny station here. And this is also going to be where the train is going to be currently sitting. So yeah, that's all ready to go. I've got this and it just ends on the corner here. So ready to go off into the future as well, whenever I expand into this area. So super pleased with this. Now it's time to get some more resources and get this station in place. With a much smaller shulker monster in place, I am ready to go with everything I need for this build. A bit of building later, and the little station is now complete. As you can see, it's got the same block palette that I used before. I have added some steampunk pipes and gone over to the other station and done the same, and added a little bit of decoration around, but I'm not quite done in this area yet. But if we head inside, you'll see it is just a cut down version, very similar to the other station. So this is the style that I'm going to use across all of the ones that we've got. We've got the waiting area, of course, we've got some amethystine, a toilet in here, and the machinery and the little barrier here with the till. And if we come out onto this, we've just got a smaller platform with, again, some waiting areas. But here, just in front of this little platform, is where I'm going to build the little monorail train. So this is going to be quite a small train, because it just goes on this relatively small track. But if I do this, we end up in the train itself. I absolutely love this little design. I've just made a small cab with space for 6 people and a little control panel here. It's mainly made of trapdoors, using some of these incredibly pretty but incredibly expensive copper trapdoors. And it runs on this rail. It's got these little wheels here, but the main wheels go underneath here, slotting into the track itself, which makes it a monorail. And I have tried to make it look as train-like as possible from the front, using some of these mangrove trapdoors as lights and just creating this little funnel design. Unfortunately, with this funnel design, I couldn't really add smoke coming out of it, but I may fiddle around with that and try and work out a way to do that in the future. But yeah, really, really pleased with this. Now that I've updated all of the maps, I think that this looks absolutely great. It adds a new dimension to the base, which was quite squared off before, but with the build here of the station and then the angles and curves going through the base here with the monorail itself and coming around the corner, I think it just, yeah, it makes a big difference to the base itself. And that isn't all. If we go back over to where I built the second station, we will find an awesome new crane that I've built. Now this one is on an angle because that's kind of been the theme for this episode, but I absolutely love how this looks. And it did take a while to do the angles going diagonally and also up as well, but I'm really, really pleased with the result. So I've been using some of the newer blocks like the copper bulbs in there and some of the decorative copper blocks. And if we head inside, not only do we see one of the viewers driving this thing, but I've also used some more details like these awesome crafters. And Scar is right, these are one of the best decorative blocks, especially when you consider the bottom of those. I've also used a whole bunch of these copper grates here, and these are brilliant for any industrial builds. The fact that you can see through them is just absolutely amazing. And if we look out here, we can see that we've got a 4-prong claw ready to pick up the items and to move them right the way over from this side here across above the building, and to deposit them either on the platform here ready to be loaded into the monorail or to be taken down to the dock area as well. So yeah, really, really love this. As you can see, I've also added a whole bunch more of the straw statues throughout the place. If you are interested in being a straw statue, do come along to my Discord and let me know your in-game username and I will get you added in on the next episode. I really, really enjoyed doing this, and hopefully you've enjoyed the episode as well. If you have, hit that like button. Do leave me a comment because it makes a big, big difference. And I will see you all next time on ADcraft.